Tastemakers was funded in part by...
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.
And by Fleischmann's Yeast and A.B. Murray.
How do you change the food system? If you're Kathleen Morgan, you make frozen custard, of course. In this episode of Tastemakers, we are going to Houston to meet a woman with degrees in animal science and business who is changing the food system one sweet bite at a time. I'm Kat Neville, and I've been telling the story of local food for about 20 years. In that time, I've seen the American food movement explode in tiny towns and big cities from coast to coast. In Tastemakers, I explore the maker movement and take you along for the journey to meet the makers who define the flavor of American cuisine. In Houston, the nation's fourth largest metropolitan area, there is a lot of pressure on small farmers as the city has grown up around their land. So makers like Kathleen Morgan play a critical role in their economic success by buying directly from those small farmers.
We are in Monaville, Texas at my family ranch. My family raised Charolais cattle primarily, and so this is a beef cattle operation. I became interested in studying agriculture after high school. I wanted to work outside. I wanted to work with my hands and not be stuck in an office all day. And so pursued agriculture, animal science specifically, and afterwards decided to also pursue a business degree so that I could pursue other avenues within agriculture. My animal science background led me to frozen custard. Honeychild sweet creams is a name that came from kind of a nickname my dad called me and my sisters growing up, Honeychild. So when I knew I wanted to start my business, it just kind of came to me. I chose to do frozen custards because of the wide range of products I could use to make them, the fact that milk was the primary ingredient, I could source that locally, and creativity it allowed. I could express so many different ideas and flavors through them.
And you may be wondering about the difference between ice cream and custard. So ice cream has at least 10% milk fat, and it has a light, airy texture. Custard adds egg yolks to the mix, and that makes it much more creamy and dense. And then, of course, there's gelato, which actually has less milk fat than both ice cream and custard, and it gets its super creamy texture from a long, slow churn.
To make frozen custards, I start with milk and cream. I add sugar and eggs as they start to heat. I heat that until about 170 degrees and then immediately take it off the heat. That's it. Easy peasy. Anybody can do it. I come up with my flavors in a lot of different ways. My core flavors stem from my relationship with food, the things that I grew up eating, my connection with this land, and the things that are harvested here. Some of the other flavors that I make are sourced from Houston generally, just my inspiration from the city. Frozen custard sells itself to an extent, but normally I'll just let people try it. I think that's where you can really tell the difference, is just by tasting it. If they're a new customer, I try to let them know where this food is coming from. especially if they're at the market that day. I love to tell people the strawberry you're tasting in here came from Atkinson, or the pecans that are in this came from this person right here sitting next to me. I really like being able to make those connections so that people can see that we're working together and that this product that they otherwise wouldn't be able to associate with a farm, you can. When I was studying animal science, I began to learn more about the different economic factors within the larger agriculture industry as a whole, and the challenges to small farmers or small ranchers like my family. I began to know that the cards were really stacked against these small farmers. The challenges mostly have to do with industrialization, the scale in which they'll have to produce food to be able to not even make a huge profit, but just break even. Those inputs are so large and the outputs are so small that it makes it really difficult to survive in the industry. And I wanted to do something about that. I felt like this was something I could be involved in. I knew whatever avenue I went down, it wasn't going to be something just for myself. I had to do something where I felt like I was leaving this place better than I found it. And so I felt like that was an avenue in which I could really have impact and use my experience to create that change that I wanted to.
One of the farms that Kathleen sources from is Plant It Forward, an interconnected web of urban farms located in Houston. In fact, one is located here in the middle of an electrical easement. Plant It Forward is focused on teaching refugees how to farm in this area and launch their own farm businesses.
Plant It Forward, they have a different business model, I guess, than most farms in that they specifically are aimed to help the refugee population, which is huge in Houston. I worked a little bit for a refugee nonprofit before I got started in this, and so that was something that was really special and something I wanted to be supportive of.
We are Plant It Forward. We are a network of urban farms in Houston, Texas. Our nonprofit works with resettled refugees who come from agrarian backgrounds, and we help farmers become farmers here in Houston and make a living off the land. We run a training program to acclimate farmers with the seasons here, the produce that grows here, the demands of the American market and such. And upon completion of our training program, we can match farmers with land at no cost to begin their urban farm business. Farmers find us or we find them in different ways. We've reached out through the local religious communities, with the local resettlement agencies, and then a good number of the people that participate in our programs find us through word of mouth. I find that there's high value in Plant It Forward being a network of urban farms because, for one thing, our produce becomes hyper-local, so we're delivering everything that we grow within a 15-mile radius. Also, I think that it's brilliant that our farmers are in neighborhoods and it kind of keeps the farm in sight, like in mind. The reason that our food system kind of unravels in certain places is because a lot of the food production is out of sight, out of mind. That makes the society more detached. So I love that this is so accessible and so open to our community.
Farmer Constant originally hails from the Congo. He's been with Plant It Forward for years. In fact, he's considered one of their master gardeners and grows an incredible array of produce.
He was one of our original farmers 7 years ago. He was in our very first class.
I'm from Congo, Brazzaville. When I come here, they told me you have to go to Texas. In my country, we knew that Texas where is a place many people farm. I say I have to go to follow my dream. Farming is to help my community to get a good food. That's when I like farming.
I met Farmer Constant at the Saturday Urban Harvest Farmers Market, and he's always super friendly, super nice, and smiling and engaging. And eventually he just got to know me. He just knew that I was the girl who bought mint every week, and we kind of went from there.
We just so appreciate the local chefs and the artisans that use local products and their local products. That just is true to the word and true to the spirit. And for a small farmer, every dollar counts. So somebody making the choice to support us means all the difference in supporting your neighbors in our local economy so we can help each other grow.
Kathleen is focused on sourcing as much as she possibly can locally, so we are here in Central Texas at Milk King Dairy. This is where she gets the majority of her milk and cream, and we're going to check in with Craig Miller, who is a third-generation dairy farmer.
I choose Milk King because they're a family farm. Their cattle are raised well, humanely, and they are low-temp pasteurized, which means you still get a lot of that really healthy bacteria and full flavor in the milk. When we were younger, my dad used to milk the cows sometimes and then just pass us some so we could see what it tasted like. And when I tried Milk King, I was like, oh, this is that. This is what that is. I remembered that taste and tasted it in that milk. And so that's why I like it.
So I'm here with Craig Miller, and he's a third-generation dairy farmer. You have 3 different breeds of cattle. Tell me about those 3.
We have Holstein, we have Brown Swiss, and we have Jersey. We keep the Holstein because that is what most people associate with palatable milk. We keep the Jersey because it's very rich in butter fat, and then we keep the Brown Swiss because they're rich in protein. And we have a 3-way cross in there so that we make the milk that we like to drink, and that's what we offer to our customers.
So what percentage of each?
About a third, a third, and a third.
Oh, okay, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
What they do here at Milk King is they use vat pasteurization, which is low temp pasteurization. Most commodity dairy, the stuff you buy for low prices at the grocery store, is pasteurized hot and fast.
A corporation will take the milk and cook it at, just for instance, 185 degrees for 3 seconds. We do something a lot more gentle. We do 145 degrees for 30 minutes. And then we pump it through and we cool it down. That's gonna change a lot inside the milk. First off, we're not going to homogenize that milk. So we're not ripping apart the protein chains that our bodies have evolved to recognize and turning them into protein chains that we don't recognize. That's where a lot of people get headaches, heartburn, diarrhea, indigestion.
Oh, interesting.
And even long-term effects like leaky gut and things like that can be pretty severe.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't really understand how dairy works, a lot of farmers, I would say most farmers, sell their milk into the commodity market, into co-ops, and then you're only getting the commodity price, whatever the market is paying at the moment. So your income could be up here one year and down here the next year. It's very difficult.
The commodity price is about $14, which is similar to what it was in 1977. So dairymen have not had a pay increase in 40 years on everything except for their pay price.
Wow.
So the industry is very difficult, has been my entire life.
But that's why people like you are deciding to essentially make their dairies into standalone brands. Rather than selling to the commodity market,
Correct.
You are labeling and you're selling to people like Kathleen,
Correct.
who say proudly that they are using your specific milk from here because of the way that you treat your cows.
Correct. We have a totally different product than what the co-ops offer. We raise our animals different. We milk our animals different. We treat the milk different in processing. We deliver it different. We're a different company from start to finish, and it allows us to have a profit margin where we can actually stay in the market.
It's sustainable for you.
It's sustainable for everyone, yes.
And now we're here at 1/5 to check in with Victoria Dearmond, who is the pastry chef. She is going to let us know about her relationship with Honeychild sweet creams and other local producers.
I genuinely do enjoy working with all of our farmers. Whenever a restaurant works directly with our farmers in the area, it boosts everybody. About 3 years ago, I was going to the farmer's market every Saturday morning, and I met Kathleen there. I think she came by our booth and was like, hey, do you want to try some ice cream? I was like, yeah, sure. So she dropped it off, and I was like, wow, this is insanely delicious. So I talked to her a little bit. She told me about her whole process of using all the local eggs, the local milk, all local produce as much as she can. And we just kind of hit it off from there. So I was like, hey, if you can bring me some stuff by, that would be awesome. And now, 3 years later, it's to where I can text her and be like, hey, I'm making this dessert. What do you think of something with these 3 things in it? She's like, yeah, sure. I'll make you some samples and bring them by and let me know what you think.
She will throw ideas at me, and I'll work some things up and throw them back at her and see what she thinks. And it's been a really fun collaboration. Some of the flavors we've worked on that I think are really awesome. We're doing a Thai pepper with a sweetened condensed milk flavor right now. I mean, I don't really like spicy things that much, so I was surprised I liked it. We're doing an orange mint that is really awesome as well. And I got the mint from Planet Forward Farms.
The orange and mint marry really nice together. The mint adds the sweetness, the orange just adds a little acidity. It's just a really nice combination of flavors. So what I'm gonna make for you guys today is a blackberry clafouti made with Atkinson Farm berries. Clafouti is a traditional French baked custard. It has really nice chewy edges and a silky smooth center. So we put some blackberries on top and then raw sugar, and then it is served with Honeychild sweet creams, orange mint custard.
I don't know what most people think of when they think of Houston. What I imagine most people think and what I've heard most people think is cowboy boots and oil, which isn't wrong. That's definitely a thing. But it's also one of the most diverse cities in the country. We have a huge refugee population. We're a majority minority city, and so it's just a really diverse mix of people. As Houston grows and expands its borders, it definitely kind of starts to swallow up some of these small towns that are outside of here. As farmers get older and less young people go into farming, when the city encroaches upon these farms, some of these older farmers are definitely inclined to kind of trade in this life. If they can sell their small plot for a significant amount and retire in a nice place, then I think they've earned it. And so I can't blame them for it. But the less small farmers there are, I think you lose that community connection with food, with land. And I think also communities lose their ability to make decisions for themselves in terms of what types of things they want being done on their land and what type of community they want to live in. When those decisions are taken out of the community and put in the hands of, say, national corporations, multinational corporations, lose a lot of say in what's happening around you. So those are things that I think are important.
Eggs are what distinguish custards from ice creams and gelatos, and so we're going to head over to the Blackwood Educational Land Institute to learn what makes happy and healthy chickens and therefore delicious eggs. So first off, kind of give me the lay of the land. Where are we exactly and what do you do?
We are 45 minutes west of Houston. We are an hour and a half east of Austin, and we are a teaching farm. And I think before we would say anything at all about producing or growing product, we talk about ourselves as being soil farmers. We're interested in nutrient-dense soil because that makes our food nutrient-dense.
What is it about the soil that people need to know?
They need to know that the soil is a living organism. It has all sorts of microbes in it that are living, eating, and breathing microorganisms that move around and help disseminate nutrients and minerals and water to all the plant roots that are in the soil.
Soil is alive.
Soil is alive, yes.
And so what role do the chickens play?
Oh my gosh, the chickens provide aeration, they provide fertilizer, they provide eggs, they provide meat, they provide insulation, they provide feathers for pillows, they provide alarm clocks and fabulous stories.
The whole idea is to bring people here to educate them about the work that you're doing. So you have special events, you bring students on.
We do school events, we do farm-to-table experiences, cooking classes. We're about teaching, we're about bringing beauty into a farm that's safe, that's beautiful, that would encourage families to want to come here and bring their kids here. And that's one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways that we will be able to raise young farmers and have young farmers.
You bring up a very good point that a lot of the farming population is kind of aging out. And we're in something of a crisis mode because a lot of young people are not choosing this way of life. And without farms, we don't have food. We need people to come in and decide to be farmers.
Right. Well, and when you think about what happened when the Industrial Revolution came, it scared everybody away from the farm. It wasn't safe to be there. So we're all about bringing them back in so that they can see, because in our mind, you can teach anything from a farm. And in order to be a successful farmer today, you have to be a great business person, you have to be a chemist, you have to be a chef, you have to be a biologist. You know, you have to be able to use the right and the left part of your brain constantly.
This is exactly what the future of food is, and what you're doing is just incredible.
Well, we've tried. We work really hard, and there's lots of other people that put in their time and effort and love here, too.
Well, there's a lot of work to be done to change the way that people think about food, and it takes people like you to make that change happen.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done and the most rewarding thing.
The way in which we talk about food, the way we talk about local food, sustainable foods, needs to be a way that's approachable and really not intimidating. And so I try to make sure that regardless of what background people have, they can come to this conversation and feel welcome here. I think the local food movement matters in that it's grassroots oriented. It really helps build momentum from the ground up. As more people get involved and engaged, it grows from there. People who come from an agriculture background like I do, or people who grew up in the city, if you can care about where your food comes from, we can help preserve just our culture generally. We are in Spring, Texas, standing in a field at Atkinson Farms. We actually have a pretty good strawberry growing season here in Houston. The climate here does well for strawberries. We are gonna take these strawberries back to my kitchen and make some frozen custard.
So we picked up these gorgeous strawberries, and now Kathleen's gonna put me to work. You want me to chop up a pound of them? Does it matter how big the pieces are?
Nope, you do whatever you want.
Okay. And the thing that distinguishes custard from ice cream really is the egg yolks, right?
Yes, it's almost like making a pudding.
Well, you get started on the eggs, and I'll get started on the strawberries.
Perfect. Just pour the milk in. I'm gonna pour a little bit of cream and get this so it starts to heat up.
So when you sugar something, like Kathleen just did, that sugar is going to start acting on the strawberries and pulling all of that wonderful juice out. Kind of like when you use salt to cure. It's almost like, kind of like sugar curing the strawberries.
That's really a good way to put it.
What temp are you trying to reach with this?
170.
And is that to cook the egg yolk?
You have to keep it moving as you cook, otherwise you'll get kind of a weird scrambled egg sort of thing. But if you keep it moving, it'll bind with that milk and the sugar and everything else and make a good custard.
Okay, this container, it's a trio of pepper, but there's something really special in there.
Yeah, it's just black pepper, pink pepper, and paradise grains. They have like a citrusy sort of smell to them and taste to them, and so I think they do really well with strawberries. All right, so a teaspoon of this. Then, if you want, we can probably go ahead and mix these strawberries in as well.
Let's do it. Dump them without making a mess?
Yes, that's the challenge. You thought this was gonna be easy.
We're about to immersion blend. This is what ice cream and custard should be made out of, which is just cream, milk, sugar, fruit, and some spices or whatever.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's really good. It's not too sweet.
No.
You can really taste the strawberries and that pepper.
It's not super identifiable, I feel like. It just adds to the
the strawberry
Yeah,
flavor.
and it makes it more complex. That is really good.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining me on our sweet trip to Houston. I'll see you next time. There's more information on the makers featured in this series, along with recipes and extra videos at wearetastemakers.com.
Tastemakers was funded in part by
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.
and by Fleischmann's Yeast and A.B. Murray.